Android has come a long way. If you've been around since the early days, you know how bad it used to be. It was laggy, battery draining, and honestly, rooting your device was almost a must just to make it bearable. Fast forward to today, and even budget Android phones are fast, smooth, and easy to use. Rooting is now more of a hobby than a necessity, and software updates, well, they're still there, but they're not as exciting anymore with just a few minor tweaks. So yeah, it's safe to say that we might have reached peak Android. But just because it's a lot better doesn't mean it's perfect. And even after all these years, there are still 7 big things that really bug me. Before we dive in though, this isn't a video about bashing Android. Think of it more like feedback, where I go over things that I love to see fixed or improved, as well as some bad habits that I've noticed. And another thing, when I refer to Android, I'm referring to stock Android, not the custom skins from different manufacturers like One UI or Oxygen OS, which might have done a better job implementing certain features. I'm referring to things we like to see improved within native Android so that we can all benefit no matter what Android phone we use. If you agree with any of these points, hit the thumbs up button. It helps push the video to the YouTube algorithm, and maybe, just maybe, the Android team over at Google will come across this video and take into consideration some of these points. Plus, if you think of a feature that you'd like to see improved in Android that I didn't mention in this video, feel free to drop a comment so that we can all benefit. Let's start with the big one, third-party launchers. Whenever I try switching to one, the navigation gestures go totally haywire. App switching gets glitchy, the recents page lags, and on some phones, even the smooth animations for opening and closing apps are gone. It's been a problem for over 5 years, ever since Google introduced their full gesture navigation in Android 10. And unfortunately, it's made me think twice about using third-party launchers altogether. Now here's what's causing this buggy experience. Ever since Android 10, Google has designed the default stock launcher to handle all the animations for opening, closing, and switching between apps. So when you switch to a third-party launcher, it messes with this functionality. Plus, third-party developers don't have access to certain APIs like QuickStep, which would let them optimize the recents page for their launchers. Since then, Google has tried to improve these animations by adding a new API in Android 13, calling it Gesture Nav Contract, and it helps third-party launchers sync better with the system's gesture navigation, so you get more fluid animations when opening, closing, or switching between apps. But the fix isn't perfect, because it still doesn't give them full access to all of QuickStep's features, so your default launcher will still have way smoother animations. And to make matters worse, only a few launchers support this newer Gesture Nav Contract API, like Nova 8 and Lawnchair 14. And some OEMs are unexpectedly even doing better than others with these animations. It's gotten so frustrating that a couple of months ago, top third-party launcher developers like Smart Launcher, Nova, Niagara, and Lawnchair joined forces to survey users about their experience with custom launchers. And after all the feedback, they took it straight to Google and the Android team, but so far, no updates from Google. I even reached out to some of the launcher developers for their take, and the developer of Smart Launcher gave me some pretty neat data. Apparently, over 75% of users they interviewed reported experiencing some kind of problem. Plus, Smart Launcher themselves have told me that they've seen a 25% growth in the past 12 months, so there is still a large audience out there for third-party launchers. It just sucks that they're unable to help their users when they ask for support with OS-related problems, aka the gesture navigations, and that's where we're currently at with third-party launchers. Another thing that drives me nuts is how stock Android often falls behind in pushing out features that just make sense and pretty much everyone else has already had for years. It usually takes other OEMs like Samsung, OnePlus, or even a completely alternate player like Apple to get Google to follow suit. For example, let's take scrolling screenshots. It's been a feature on many Android phones for 4 to 6 years before it became native in Android 12. The same thing with screen recording. It was available on most phones years before it came to stock Android. And don't even get me started on widgets. Google didn't take widgets seriously for over a decade, and they only updated them a year later after Apple made theirs look amazing. You get the point. I could go on, and to this day, it's still occurring. For example, we all want lock screen widgets to return to stock Android. And so far, almost every OEM out there, including Apple, has given us lock screen widgets for several years now. And as for Google, they barely brought back lock screen widgets to just tablets 2 months ago. There's still no word yet on Android phones. Another is third-party icon pack support on the launcher. Several other Android manufacturers have allowed their launchers to support custom icon packs for years now, but not Google. So just because the Pixels tend to be the first to get the latest major Android updates, doesn't mean that they're at the front of the line when it comes to common sense features that pretty much every other smartphone already has. I would encourage Google to start making the lead and implement those no-brainer features a lot quicker to make stock Android a lot more useful and exciting. The next thing that really bugs me about stock Android is how difficult it is to use with one hand. Sure, there's a one-handed mode, but honestly, it doesn't feel as intuitive. Again, this goes back to my last point about how some OEMs are leading by example. OnePlus, Oppo, and especially Samsung have done a much better job of making their UIs more one-handed friendly by shifting UI elements to the lower half of the screen. They've even implemented some creative features to improve one-handed use, like on Oxygen OS or Color OS within the home screen. You can swipe up on the bottom right or left side of the screen to easily pull down all the icons on that page toward your finger. It's really neat. On Samsung, things get even crazier. Within their Good Lock app, they have an entire mod called One Hand Operation Plus that literally lets you add gestures to the side of the screen for launching things like quick tools, an app drawer, widgets, certain tasks, or my favorite action of them all, a virtual touchpad that lets you control the top half of the screen with just one hand, sort of like a mouse. Now that's a feature that I would love to see on stock Android. But on stock Android, there's nothing like this. Even some obvious things that should be at the bottom, like the search bar in the app drawer, the brightness bar in the quick settings, and even the search button in most Google apps are still placed up at the top of the screen. And honestly, that's just too far out of reach for one-handed use. Now, I'm not saying that they should take One UI's drastic approach of making every screen lower, but at least moving more basic elements and buttons to the bottom would make a huge difference for one-handed use. When it comes to notifications, Android has improved a lot, but there's still room for growth. One thing I love to see is better organization. Right now, we can silence, minimize, or just turn off certain notification channels we don't care about, but it would also be great if we could have a way to separate our important notifications from the less important ones. Sometimes I get a ton of notifications from certain apps and I don't want to disable them completely, just in case something important comes through. It would be amazing if I could prioritize certain apps like my messaging or email apps so their notifications come through instantly, while other, less important apps could have their notifications batched and delivered later on in the day. That way, I wouldn't have to check my phone every 5 minutes just to make sure I didn't miss anything urgent. Now, you might be thinking that Do Not Disturb mode would solve the problem, and while it does help with reducing interruptions, it's not perfect. For one, I don't want my phone to be constantly enabled with Do Not Disturb mode, just to avoid hundreds of dings. Plus, once I disable Do Not Disturb mode, all the unimportant notifications come flooding in at once, mixing in with the important ones randomly inside the notification panel. It would be so much better if there were a dedicated space, section, or just an entire page on its own just for these less important notifications. For example, I would love to be notified that I have, say, X number of unimportant notifications waiting for me since the last time I checked. Then I can tap on that alert and be taken to a page that lets me see all of them. This would be a huge improvement, and it's similar to what some notification management apps like Daywise or Filterbox already do. Okay, I don't know how many times I said notification, but anyway, while we're at it, it'd also be great if Google could also use AI to automatically summarize bundle notifications, just like iOS. That way, if the group chat is blowing up, I can just get a summary of what the boys were talking about instead of needing to read through dozens of messages just to figure out what I missed. Okay, just like your phone is important, good hygiene should be too, especially if you got something important coming up like a job interview or a first date. Looking sharp with a great smile can really boost your chances. And yeah, the kind of toothbrush you use matters more than you think. let me put you guys on. I've been using Lafen's Wave toothbrush for the past few weeks, the sponsor of this video, and honestly, I'm not going back. Whichever one you use, you can really feel it getting into all those tough to reach spots. And it's because the Lafen Wave is the world's first electric toothbrush to have both vibrating and oscillating technology that results in brush head movements that mimics the dentist recommended bass brushing technique, providing a superior cleaning experience. It's also 3 times more powerful than any of the competition, especially since it has a built-in servo system, so even if you apply a ton of pressure to it while brushing, it still delivers consistent power. Before, I had this basic electric toothbrush that couldn't handle pressure, didn't clean deeply, and needed constant battery and brush head replacements, costing me a lot of money. It was getting pretty frustrating. But after I switched to the Lafen Wave, all these problems went away. First off, the design is super sleek. It feels premium in the hand, has a ton of different colors to choose from, and looks incredible. Especially this stainless steel version. That one's really fancy. Plus, you can switch between different modes, and within the Lafen app, you can also adjust these modes and change the vibration levels, oscillation, and speed to fit your style. It comes with different brush heads to suit different brushing styles as well. There's one for gum care, another for deep cleaning, and one for ultra whitening. So ditch that old electric toothbrush that's barely doing the job and step it up with the Lafen Wave for a serious brushing upgrade. During Lafen's Black Friday sales, they're even providing up to 40% off so that you can snag it at a cheaper price. I'll drop the link at the top of the description. Check it out. Okay, now back to Android. Here's a classic issue: third-party camera apps. On most Androids, I don't like that whenever I try to take a photo or video within third-party apps like Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, etc., the quality is usually much worse than if you were to shoot within the main camera app. This is a problem that I'm sure most of you have faced for a really long time, and it's even more frustrating when you realize that iPhone users don't have to deal with the same thing. So what's the deal, and why hasn't this been fixed in the 15 years that Android has existed? Well, the simple answer is that Android manufacturers aren't really required to fully support or expose all of their camera features to the tools that Google provides to help bridge the gap between a device's camera hardware and third-party apps trying to access those unique camera features. That means when third-party apps try to access your camera, they're often limited to a fraction of what the cameras are actually capable of, and they may miss out on these number of camera features that you see on the screen. You can even download this app called CameraX Info to see what camera extensions your OEM has supported that third-party apps can use. Plus, not every app developer out there will support these newer camera APIs right away for every device out there. The process takes time. For example, Snapchat did a great job of implementing night mode for the latest Google Pixel devices and Samsung Galaxy devices, but still pretty much every other Android phone out there doesn't have this night mode toggle, so low light shots are really bad still. So until Google makes it mandatory for manufacturers to expose their camera capabilities in a consistent way across devices, we'll likely continue seeing a subpar camera experience in third-party apps. And even if Google does enforce this, that will still leave us with the problem that app developers will need time to adopt and integrate these new camera features into their apps, which will also take time. So yeah, most Android users will still have a terrible camera quality in third-party apps for a while. Another thing I don't like about Android is not knowing when you'll get a new feature or software update. Take Android 15 for example. We all expected the official release to happen at the end of the summer based on the timeline that Google shared with us at the beginning of the year. But nope, Android 15 didn't drop until mid-October. On top of that, Google has this bad habit of promising new features for Android only to tell us it's coming later this year. And as if that wasn't frustrating enough, most Google services, apps, and Pixel features get delayed even further, or sometimes never show up at all if you happen to live outside of the United States. And don't even get me started on other Android OEMs, that's where things get really crazy. For example, who would have thought that Samsung would push back their Android 15 update, known as One UI 7, all the way to 2025? It's pretty wild. Now to be fair, Apple isn't perfect either. They've been known to delay certain features as well, But the key difference is that when Apple releases a new feature, they do a lot better in making sure the majority of iPhones receive it at the same time. With Android, things aren't as easy. Lastly, I really can't stand how Google made the expanded volume panel on stock Android ridiculously large. Even when it's minimized, it's still pretty big. Sure, it looks sort of nice following that Material You design language, but honestly, it doesn't need to take up that much space. And when you rotate your phone to landscape, it just gets worse. What's even more frustrating is that this trend has caught on with other OEMs like OnePlus and Oppo who've decided to follow suit and make their expanded volume panel take up the entire screen. Google could have easily taken a page out of Samsung's or Nothing's playbook and made the expanded volume panel a floating set of volume bars instead. It would have been a lot more practical. Anyway, that's my list. Tap on this video right here if you'd like to learn about 15 apps that can improve your Android drastically. Thanks for sticking to the end. Drop a thumbs up if you agree with any points that I made in this video. Get subscribed with the notification bell turned on as well so that you don't miss out on any future videos that I make that are just like this. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Kapow!